So this is another class corrections. A mistake I often see is when I ask the question, how long have you worked there? Or how long have you lived there? And the answer I get is, I have worked here since 10 years, or I have lived there since 10 years. So why is this incorrect? Well, because we wouldn't use since and the number, the amount of years. Okay, so let's start with what is correct. Have worked is the present perfect tense. So when do we use the present perfect? Well, if we take this line, here we have the past, the present, and the future. So we put this as past, present, and future. Okay. If we say the present perfect tense, it's an action that starts in the past but continues to the present time. This is the present perfect tense. This is different to saying I worked. I worked is the simple past. The simple past tense is an action that starts in the past and finishes in the past. So this action is finished. The present perfect action is unfinished. When we use the word since, we are implying that it is an unfinished action. So this is correct to use the present perfect, and since is correct. I have worked here since. Perfect. The problem, of course, is putting it in terms of 10 years. Why? Well, because when we say an amount of time, we need to use the preposition for, not since. So we would say, I have worked here for 10 years. I have lived here for 2 years. It's the same thing. For goes with the amount of time. Okay. So how then can we fix the sentence, I have worked here since 10 years? Well, by getting rid of the amount of time, 10 years, and being specific about when the action happened. So if we are specific about when the action happened, then we use since. So what can we say? I have worked here since 2013, for example. I have worked here since May. I have worked here since 2005. When you say a specific time, you use since. When you say an amount of time, you use for. Okay, so let's look at this if we go with a few examples of these different sentences. Okay. I have lived here since 2003 would be I have lived here for 20 years. They both mean the same, they're just different ways of saying it. So, what about looking at the verbs? We have used the same verb tense in both, the present perfect. So, what about if I change it to the simple past and I say, I lived here? Well, that means you no longer live there anymore. So, this means you still live here, and this means you don't live here anymore. So you can say, I lived here in 2003 if you're being specific about just this 1 year. What about if you want to say you lived there for 20 years but you don't live there anymore? Then I suppose we could say, I lived here from 2002, as I'm writing, 2002 until 2022. Or, if you don't want to put in till, I lived here from 2002 to 2022. So now you're giving the amount of time you lived there in the past, but you don't live there anymore. So when you use the present perfect, with the verb to have and the past participle, it's unfinished. And when you use the simple past, it's finished. So can you notice what's actually changing in these sentences apart from the verbs? It's the prepositions. So the use of your preposition needs to change depending on how you structured the sentence. So be careful of the prepositional changes. These, of course, are an example of just one of the differences between the simple past and the present perfect. There are other differences, of course, but really what I wanted to show you today is the difference between since and for, and when do we use them, because it's a very common mistake that I see. And since is specific time, and for is an amount of time. So since 2010, since May, this would be for 2 years, for 3 months, an amount. And that's the main difference. If you enjoyed this lesson, please like and subscribe, and you can go to my TikTok and Instagram for a lot more shorter, quicker grammar and vocabulary lessons.